So we have a length object here. Now we're going to implement the stream insertion operator so we can write a length object to an output stream like cout. We talked about streams in the previous part of this course. So if you're not familiar with this concept, go back to part 2 and watch the section about streams. So now let's go ahead and implement this operator for our length object. Back to our header file. Now we cannot declare this operator inside the length class. It has to be declared outside of this class as a global function. I will explain the reason in a minute. So down here, we're going to declare a function called operator insertion. The return type is OStream, which is short for output stream. This is a class that is declared in a file called OStream. Okay, now back to our function declaration. So this function needs two parameters. The first one is an output stream, and we want to make this a reference parameter for performance reasons. The second parameter is a length object. And again, we want to make this a reference parameter, and we want to make it a constant so we don't accidentally change it. Okay. Now we have a compilation error because we haven't prefixed these with std. And this is where I want to remove this prefix from here. I don't want to add this prefix all over the place. So instead, I'm going to use the std namespace. Good. Now the errors are gone. So this is our function declaration. And by the way, the return type should also be a reference. Now let's generate the definition. Okay. Now in this function, first we're going to write the value of this length to this stream object. So stream length dot value. But look, we don't have access to this value because this is a private attribute. So we have to go back to our length class, and here we put the cursor, press Command and N on Mac or Control and N on Windows. And now we can generate a getter and a setter for this field. Good. Now back to our header file. Note that cline added another public section. So now we have two public sections. It's kind of ugly, so let's consolidate our code by moving these two new functions to our previous public section. Good. So we have a getter and a setter for the value field. Now back to our insertion operator. So here we call getValue. We write it to this output stream, and finally we return this stream object from this function. Now the reason we have to return this stream object here is so we can chain the insertion operator multiple times. So over here, we should be able to write code like this. So when this expression is evaluated, a function is called, which is our operator insertion function. Here we have two parameters, a stream and a length. So what we have on the left side is our stream, and on the right side, we have an integer. Now this function returns a stream object, which is in this case, cout. So the result of this expression is going to be cout again. Now one more time, we have an expression that is familiar. So this gets evaluated and results in a function call that returns another cout object. So if we return this stream object, we can chain the insertion operator multiple times. Okay. Now, earlier I told you that this operator has to be declared outside of the length class. But what is the reason? Well, if you have paid close attention, you probably noticed that in all the operators we implemented so far, we assume that what we have on the left side of the operator is the current object. For example, let's look at the implementation of the equality operator. So that is up here. All right, take a look. So what we have on the left side is the current object, and what we have on the right side is the other object. Now back to our main file. When we use the insertion operator, what we have on the left side is not a length object, it's an output stream. So technically, this function or this operator should be implemented in the output stream class. But that is part of the standard library. We don't have access to it. We cannot change its source code. So we have to declare this function outside of the length class because the first parameter is not a length object. All right, now as your exercise, overload the stream insertion operator for writing a point object to an output stream. It's super easy. I'm sure you can knock it out in a couple of minutes. So as I told you earlier, we cannot declare this operator inside the point class. We have to declare it outside as a global function. But first, we need to include the OStream header file and use the std namespace. Now, after this class, we declare a function that returns an OStream object as a reference. The first parameter is an OStream as a reference as well. And the second parameter is a constant point as a reference. Now let's generate the definition. Now in this function, we're going to return the stream object, but before returning it, first we're going to write the left bracket followed by point.getX and a comma followed by point.getY and finally the right bracket. As simple as that. Now back to our main function. We have a point object, so let's print this point on the terminal. Beautiful.